Yo, what's up, my people? In this video, we're going to be doing two-step equations and two-step inequalities. If you can do the one steps, you can do two steps because one and two steps are very similar. Pretty much your two steps are just two one-step equations in one. So let's go ahead and get started right here with number one. First thing I want you to do is whenever you see a parenthesis, I want you to automatically think to distribute. So let's go ahead and do this. Distribute means I'm going to multiply this negative 5 times v. That's negative 5v. Negative 5 times a negative 8 is a positive 40 equals 10. Okay, so we're going to do our C-do table. And remember that what we see and do has to go, in our table. So I see, let me show you what I see. I see a plus 40 right here. And I see a times negative 5, just so y'all can see that. And I see times negative 5. All right, so we don't need that. We don't need that. All right. Now, in this case, before now, you've learned the order of operations. And the order of operations was PEMDAS. But remember, addition, subtraction are equivalent in their orders. And you got multiplication, division, whatever comes first. So, but when you're solving equations, you have to do the order of operations backwards. So we got to take care of the addition, subtraction first, then do the multiplication, division. And there's one case where that isn't the case, and we're going to run into one of those a little bit later. All right, so first thing I need to, let's look back at my C-do table. If I have plus 40, I should have a minus 40. And if I have a times negative 5, I'm eventually going to end up dividing by negative 5. All right, so let's start off my addition subtraction first. I need to go ahead minus 40. (10 minus 40), that's negative 30, equals negative 5v. Now I need to divide by both. I need to divide by negative 5. That's that step. And you'll get that v equals a positive 6. Okay, let's keep rolling. Next one. Now, what happens when I have this negative on the outside? Now, I want to address this. When there's a negative on the outside, that's equivalent of saying negative 1. And now I can go ahead and distribute. This negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. This negative 1 times n is a negative 1n, or just minus n. Okay, let's look at what do I see and what do I do. See, do. I see a minus 2, and again, I'm looking at this line. I see a minus 2, and I see a times negative 1. Which means, what am I going to do? I'm going to add 2, and then I'm going to divide by negative 1. Okay, that sounds a bit strange, right? Let's see what happens. If I add 2, that takes care of that. 12 plus 2 is 14 is equal to negative 1n. Now I need to divide by negative 1. N is equal to, what is 14 divided by negative 1? Negative 14. That's the answer to that one. Okay, let's do the next one. Okay, let's identify what do I see and what do I do. There's no parentheses, so I can jump right in. What do I see? Which determines what do I do. I see 2 times A. So I see a times 2. That's right here. And I see a plus 8. That's right here. Okay, makes sense? I see a plus 2. I see a times 2 and a plus 8. So if that's the case, that means I'm going to have to eventually divide by 2. And I'm also have to subtract 8 at some point. All right, and then remember order of operations backwards. I got to do addition subtraction first. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 8. Subtract 8. 2A is equal to 26 minus 8. That's going to give us 18. That's this one. So I did that part. And then last thing I need to do is divide by 2. So my A is going to be positive 9. And you want to do a quick check. If I do, let's call this quick check. Quick check. If I put 9 right here, so I do 2 times 9 plus 8. 18 plus 8 equals 26. Yes. And that matches that. That's how you do a quick check. All right. Off to this side. And we're going to have, let's see, what do I see? Determines what I do. Okay, now, this 8 is in the front. That is a positive 8. There's no sign there, so that I can go ahead and say that's a plus 8. And right here, I'm going to just highlight this. That means times negative 2. That's a negative 2 attached to that x. Okay, so that's a negative 2 attached to that x. So that's a times negative 2. I'm going to show you one more thing in a second. All right, so then I have to undo the plus 8. I have to do the inverse, which is minus 8. And then the inverse of times negative 2 is divided by negative 2. Now, off to the side, I'm going to go ahead and just do this right here. I'm going to eventually erase it. So 8 minus 2x. I could rewrite that because this 8's positive. I could do negative 2x plus 8. If that makes you feel better, you could rearrange it, but you got to make sure you put the correct signs. All right, so here's the plus 8 that I was talking about. Here's the times negative 2 that I was talking about just a few moments ago. All I did was put them in different places, but it's still the same. All right, so let's go ahead and erase that. Now, let's get back to our work. So first thing I got to do is I got to do the minus 8. Negative 2x equals 16 minus 8 is 8. And then I got to divide by negative 2. So x equals negative 4. All right. Earlier in the video, I told you there is one instance where you don't do the order of operations backwards, and this is it. You don't do the order of operations backwards simply because this right here is one large division problem. And because of one large division problem, I have to take care of the division first because the division is the dominant part of this problem. Okay, so we're going to end up going backwards on this one. So we're still going to do C. We're still going to do do. And I see it divided by 2, which means I'm going to have to multiply by 2. And I also see a positive 10, which means somewhere I'm going to need a negative 10 or minus 10. First things first, times by 2 because it's the dominant. I got to times by 2 to get this started. 10 plus x is equal to -8. Now I'm at a one-step equation. I'm going to subtract 10, which is this one. X equals -18. Okay, that's -18. Now, on this next part, now let's look at the difference on the two. See, this one has division also, but division is not dominant. Okay, it's not dominant. All right, so what do I see? I see it divided by -3, and I also see a +6. What does that mean I'm going to end up doing? Times -3, and since I have a +6, I'm going to end up subtracting 6. All right, so first things first. Now I go back to regular order of operations backwards, -6 from both sides. So x divided by -3, 8 minus 6 is 2. And then I'm going to multiply both sides by -3, which is this part. I'm going to get x equals -6. All right, so let's go ahead and do these couple of two-step equations. But these are the inequalities version. So we're going to be doing some shading and all that good stuff. All right, so let's look at number 7. We're gonna work right through this thing right here. So on number 7, I'm gonna do a C do table. I see a -9 or a -9, and I see a times 2, which means I'm going to eventually end up having to add 9 or divide by 2. Just do the work down here. First things first, I got to do my addition subtraction first. That's this one. I'm going to go ahead and add 9. Um, 15 plus 9 is 24. Divided by 2. N is less than 12. Remember from our last video, we got an open circle on the 12. And because it's variable, symbol, number, just like we like it, this is going to tell me shade left. Okay, let's look at number 8. See and do. The first thing that sticks out to me is the fact that my variable and stuff is all on the wrong side. So I'm going to flip it now. -8n minus 5. And then since this faced the 8n, I'm going to go ahead and face it that way. And then I'm going to put the 3. Now let's pay attention to what we see and pay attention to what we do. I see a times -8. And I also see a -5. And by now, you should know what we're going to do. I'm going to end up adding 5. And I'm going to end up dividing by -8. Okay? So, step 1, add 5. I got -8n is greater than 8 so far. Check. That step is done. Next step, I have to divide by -8. n. But remember, the rule is when you multiply or divide by a negative, the sign flips. And then 8 divided by negative 8 is negative 1. So I'm going to have an open circle on negative 1. Shade to the left. If you don't flip, you're going to end up shading to the wrong side. Okay? All right. And remember, the side that you shade on has to be the true side. So let's do a quick check. If I put like 0, 0 is not in the shaded section. Negative 8 times 0 minus 5 should be greater than 3. Well, negative 8 times 0 is 0. Minus 5 is greater than 3. Negative 5 is greater than 3. Is that true? Would you rather owe somebody $5 or have $3? I don't want to owe anybody anything. So 0 is on the false side. And the shaded is on the true side. Okay, so y'all shade on the true side. That's how you can do a quick check. 2 more. Up. Here's this whole dominant division question, and it's backwards. So let's go ahead and flip it now because I don't have to deal with that later. 6 plus x over 2, 11. So everything is flipped. What do I see? What do I do? Well, I see a divided by 2. That's first, I see. And I also see a positive 6. What does that mean I'm going to do? Well, I know I'm going to end up multiplying by 2. And I know I'm going to eventually have to subtract 6 somewhere. But because this is dominant division question, I have to start with the times 2 because I need to get this division out the way. We don't like fractions. Get them out the way. Okay, so 6 plus x is greater than 22. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. X is greater than 22. Minus 6 is 16. So I'm going to have an open circle on the 16. And I'm going to shade. Which direction? What does this tell me? To the right. And the last one, which has some parentheses, I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite this down this way to give me some room to work. First things first, when I see parentheses, that should trigger me to do something. That should trigger me to think something. And what is that think something? That should trigger me to multiply. Negative 6 times x is negative 6x. Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. It's greater than or equal to 96. Now I need to do a see-do column. I'm going to just do it down here. And I see times negative 6. And I see minus 12. Times negative 6 minus 12. Which means I'm going to end up having to divide by negative 6 at some point. And I'm going to have to add 12. So let's do that. So I need to add 12. Negative 6x is greater than or equal to, what is 96 plus 12? That's 108. And then what do I have to do next? I need to divide by negative 6. Let's do this green. And then 108 divided by negative 6, that happens to be negative 18. I made a mistake. What was the mistake? And it wasn't my multiplication. When you multiply or divide by a negative, what was that rule? The sign should flip. So that was the mistake. The sign I didn't flip it originally, so I need to flip it to be that way. Okay? So now I'm going to have a closed circle on negative 18. And I'm going to shade to the left. If I would have caught my mistake, I would have shaded to the right. Okay, that's all I have for this video. If you have any questions, see me in class. Feel free to rewind this video and watch it again. All right, talk to you soon.